So in Genesis, God promised Abraham that he will give him many descendants and bless him a great nation. And I think a deeper meaning or like God's purpose for this covenant is that he trusts to form a people who would embody God's intention for humanity, and they would live in a close relationship with God and reflect him to the world around them. With his promise to make a great nation for Abraham and to bless all the nations through him, God was once again commissioning humanity to live as his representatives on earth. And we should know, we should try to like strengthen our faith in God, and because he offers us this generous blessing and invites us to his plan of redemption, and we should definitely follow him and believe in him. So in book of Exodus, God was speaking to Moses out of the burning bush, and I think there are some symbolism of the fire. First, God reveals himself as a fire in that it's an image of his holiness. And also through the Bible, fire is used as a picture of the purifying and defining quality of God's holiness. And it kind of like emphasizes that there's no one like holy and like or perfect like the Lord. Secondly, God revealed himself to Moses out of the burning bush as an image of his glory. His glory is just like a consuming fire, and so like we as human beings cannot approach it, but like the only thing like we can be holy is to trust in God and believe in the person and work of Jesus Christ. And today, like the only way for us to come into presence of a holy God is to become holy ourselves, and that is also why God sent Jesus to be ourselves. And when we believe him, like God accept us as holy, and as holy as Jesus himself. So this that's like the deeper meaning of this passage.
The first group I'm going to reflect on is the group that did the biblical exegesis on Genesis and the story of Abraham. Audrey gave a very insightful overview of their passage. In addition to giving a thorough summary, she also gave us an overview of the history of Abraham, which gave us a great starting point for us to truly understand what the people living at the time were thinking and going through. She also told us about the literary techniques, like imagery and parallelism, which was very insightful as this new knowledge allowed us to become more and more familiar with the scripture itself and what it was trying to convey. I remember the rhetorical text being very interesting, considering the fact that Abraham parallels Israel in that God tested his faith in what seemed a radical way, and I thought it was interesting that God put both Abraham and his people through a traumatic experience because it would ultimately have a positive impact on their faith and understanding of sacrifice. Some parts of the PowerPoint had a little too much information that it made it a little difficult to follow along with the notes on the screen and with what the presenter was saying at the same time. However, overall, I think the group was very prepared and gave a stellar presentation. The second group that I'm going to reflect and comment on is the group that did the biblical exegesis on Moses and the Exodus. The person who did the literary interpretation of both passages did a good job of summarizing the passage, but could have given a little more background as to what was going on, as it was a little bit harder to connect the passage to any sort of historical data or events. The person who did the liturgical interpretations for both passages, although they had very good interpretations and analyses, read right off of the PowerPoint and put all of their information in paragraph form on the PowerPoint. Although it was a good exegesis, it was difficult to follow and not engaging because we, as the audience, were just being read to, and every bit of information was on the PowerPoint rather than spoken to us. In the actual presentation, the rhetorical interpretation for both passages was not in the PowerPoint at all, indicating lack of preparedness and readiness. Even though the person who was going to present the information was absent, the group should have still been able to present that person's notes on the PowerPoint, and they could not. Overall, the PowerPoint had a little too much information, and although they presented good information and reflections, the group was much less prepared than the group before them.